Whenever a new version of Football Manager is released, the official forums, the Steam forums, the Football Manager Reddits and so on is always filled with posts from people complaining about injuries, telling that, oh, this game is unrealistic and getting so and so many injuries, please fix this. Well, injuries can be annoying, especially when they happen to some of your key players. But what I'm going to show you here, I'm recording this on FM20, but this is the way I've been doing in previous version of Football Manager, and I'm sure it's going to work in future versions too. So no matter what version of Football Manager you're using, this guide is relevant for you. I recorded the clip you see right now after the first season. We've just won the league. I'm going to head over to the medical center. Here you get all the information about your team's fitness. And as you can tell, we've seen a 64% decrease in injuries so far this season compared to what we could expect on average. That's a huge difference. 64% decrease compared to what we could have expected. That's sensational numbers. Let's move ahead then to the end of the second season. And unfortunately we couldn't defend our title, but let's focus on injuries right now. And as you can tell, this season we got 50% less injuries compared to what we could expect on average. I mean, first season 64%, second season 50%, that's insane. And now we're back in real time in my current save. We are almost half through the season here, as you can tell, with 2 days before Christmas. January window is about to open, so almost halfway through the season. And then let's go to the medical center, and you find out this season we've seen a 68 decrease in injuries so far compared to what we could expect on average. So what's the secret? How do you reduce the amount of injuries with these insane numbers? But first off, I would like to say that there's actually nothing, like, it's not a huge secret. Everything here is common sense, but yet so few people use it. Yet the forums are full of people complaining of injuries. So first off, this screen gives you a lot of information. And you can tell that from these ones, there are a few things that affect injuries. First off, you have match load. Then you have training load. You have injury susceptibility. And these three things together gets the overall risk for new injuries. And as you can tell, people with heavy match load have a high risk. Now we don't have anybody with high training load, so it doesn't have a huge effect. Then of course your injury susceptibility has an effect. So just by looking at this screen, you can realize that for the next game, you should probably rest these 4 players. Because these 4 players have a high injury risk. And of course you can also go with these 2 guys that have an increased injury risk. So yeah, nothing strange. This is very much common sense. Don't you agree with me? But still, so many people are struggling with injuries. So if you go to your squad screen, you can get a lot of information out of this. Now I'm using a costume view, but the built-in ones you have, especially you have the selection one, doesn't say maybe not much, and of course I probably pimped it a little bit. But the one that's most interested in is risk assessment. Here you get kind of the basic information, the same information you got on the other screen. You can see the match load, the training load, injury suspicion, and so on, and the overall risk. You can also go to injuries to see any current injuries. If I go to my strikers, you can see Lukaku is injured, so you get some information telling that he is injured, when he got injured, when he's expected to get back, and of course his condition. But how do we use this information? How do we actually take advantage of this once we don't get injuries? So when you are going to pick your team for a game, first off I have my built-in one. If you remember from this screen, you have training load and match load and how often, like how easy they get injuries. When it comes to picking my team for the match, training load kind of doesn't matter. You set that one up with training, you can increase or decrease intensity of training, and of course you might have given a player like an individual training to increase his workload and so on. All that stuff. You can go to the training screen. You can set it up. You can increase and decrease training load. You can give them more rest days before games, days after game, and so on. You can experimenting with training by yourself. But the match load is definitely something we would like to focus on here. So in my own UI, you can create custom UI. I always have so I can see the match load. When I pick a team, I try to first off focus on fitness. I more or less have 2 players that can play in each position, and then I just rotate them. So as you can tell, almost everybody right here currently have a light match load. And all of these guys, these are guys that played the last game, are between medium and heavy. So whenever I pick my game, okay, so I start off with turning things around. Okay, we go from one with a medium load to another medium load. Okay, that wasn't a great example, but he at least is fitter. We go from one with a heavy load to one with a light load. We go from one with a heavy load to one with a light load. You go from one with a heavy load to one with a light load. I mean, just by doing these changes drastically reduces the risk of injuries. Yes, sometimes you need to play somebody that's on a heavy load. Sometimes you're going to play people with a medium load. But by rotating this way, you drastically decreases the amount of injuries you get. And this is the main way I get rid of injuries. I always rotate, like very, very, very uncommonly for any of my players except the goalkeeper to play 2 games in a row. I always try to have 2 players for each position. I just rotate them every game. Of course, you want them to be as good as possible. You want to have 2 great players in every game. Or maybe you can't get that from the beginning, so you have 1 great player and a decent talent. Then you start a great player in all big games. And for all the easier games, you start with a big or decent talent. Just make sure, so as rare as possible, you can start with people with heavy match load, and as often as possible, people with light match load. And that's have a huge effect on your injuries. But there's one last trick, and to show you this one, I'm going to jump over to another save. So now I jumped over and become the manager of Liverpool, and this is a team that actually have some players with that are injury prone. For example here, Adam Lallana, if you go to coach report, it will tell you might have problem with injuries. If you go to Keita, fairly susceptible to injuries. If you go to Joe Gomez, fairly susceptible to injuries. These are the type of players that get injured very often. Because in this game, you can't see it in game, but there's a hidden attribute for injury proneness. And I think it can be between 1 and 20. When 1 is the lowest, like you very, very rarely get injured, and 20 is the highest, like that player gets injured very, very easy. So what I tend to do is that I tend to sell on players that are injured prone. Well, some of them might stay. In this case, I probably would have keep Joe Gomez just because it's young, it's very talented, very promising. I might keep Keita for a season or 2 to see how he actually looks. And I probably would try to get rid of Lallana ASAP. I know from real life, I mean, I've been following Liverpool every season. I know that he's injured a lot. So I'd probably try to sell Lallana ASAP just because that injured proneness. Then I'm going to keep a very clear eye out for Gomez and Keita, and I might sell them if that injury problem shows to be rid. We also have, I think, the Ox. I would probably think about selling him on too, even though I like him as a player. He has a lot of injuries, so it could sound harsh selling injury-prone players, but you need to think about this in the long run. Can you imagine how much easier it will be for you to win the league, to win the Champions League, if you get, for example, 50% less injuries than you're supposed to do? That can have a huge effect on your season, on your success, everything. So there you have it. These are my very common sense tricks, but they work. And it should work in previous version of Football Manager, it should work in future version of Football Manager. If you follow these steps, of course there's always RNG involved, you can get extremely unlucky, but you saw my 3 seasons. Many of these seasons I was 60-something% below what could be expected when it comes to injuries. So if you found this guide helpful, make sure to press that like button because that helps me out, and make sure to check out my channel for a lot of other Football Manager content. Subscribe if you want more FM guides. Thank you for watching.